This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent as we look forward to this weekend's game, heading down to Dean Court, or the Vitality as Bournemouth fans probably hate to call it. I'm delighted to be joined by Craig from Up the Cherries in all departments. Craig, how are we?
Yeah, all good, all good. Who would have thought this game was be a top of the table clash?
I know.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's brilliant.
Definitely. Absolutely. I mean, two informed sides of Bournemouth unbeaten 11 in all competitions, 10 in the Premier League, winning 6, drawing 4. Forest, 9 games unbeaten in all comps, 8 games. We've won 7 of them, drew 1 to Liverpool. I mean, that's quite nice. Yeah, it's going swimmingly for the promotion party. I mean, no, you could include Fulham in that. They're in the top 10. Craig, first of all, I just want to ask you about the Newcastle game, because obviously walloped Newcastle at St James's Park. Who doesn't like silencing the Geordies in emphatic fashion, I would say, especially with Justin Kluivert scoring a terrific hat-trick. For anyone that didn't watch the game, didn't see any highlights, just talk us through it a little bit.
To be honest, this was probably our best performance in the Premier League ever. I've got to be, going into the game, as I've been saying for a number of weeks now, to be honest, Adam, I've been saying I think that probably the wheels will fall off a little bit. I think we'll struggle. We've got multiple injuries. We've had a lot of bad luck. Adam Smith is out. Marcus Senesi is out. And we've also let players go out on loan as well. You'll be pleased to know Philip Billing has actually left the club to go to Napoli. He was on the bench against them. Kiefer Moore is no longer at the club. If you've been watching the Championship, he's down there now. And our strikers have been Evan Nielsen and Enes Unal. And Evan Nielsen got an injury. This is how bad luck it was. Evan Nielsen got an injury, and it was all in the press. Enes Unal's got his moment to shine. And I even said it, it'll be really good to see what Enes does. Next day, he gets a bloody ACL, and it's like, that's his season gone. And to perform like we did against Newcastle, considering all the challenges we've got, if you look at our bench, it is a bunch of kids at this moment in time. Anybody who you would say is Premier League quality or is an established Premier League player is on the pitch at the moment, with the exception of Mark Travers, of course, our goalkeeper, who I would say probably deserves his place in the starting 11, but others would say with Kepa, bit of a point which, it's a bit 50-50 between our fan base at the moment. But it was the best performance that we've ever seen in the Premier League. Justin Kluivert, as you rightly said, Adam, was excellent. That third goal was unbelievable. The second goal, you could say, was probably a Newcastle fault at the back. They kind of turned off. A bit of miscommunication there. The opening goal was excellent. We got pegged back, of course, to 1-1. And then Milos Kerkez, who is our left back, he's been exceptional. Hungarian international, raced through a brilliant, effectively solo goal to make it 4-1. But it doesn't tell the whole story. Dongo Watara put it in the back of the net. I personally think it should have counted. Dongo's been a bit unlucky against Newcastle this season. Of course, he was the one that actually headed the ball in, but it was then judged to have come off his shoulder, or they said it was a handball. It did come off the top end of his shoulder into the back of the net, and they ruled it out against back up at St James's Park as well last Saturday. And you've also got to consider David Brooks also had what was a really cheeky flick onto the post, which, to be honest, a margin to the left, that would have gone in, but it was an exquisite performance. And we're coming into this game, in good form, in loads of injuries, but very, very good form, which I'm sure won't please Forest fans. I know that's a very, very elaborate answer about that game, but I have been blowing our trumpet about it.
I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, we were the same when Chris Wood scored a hat-trick. We thought it turned into the old R9 as round Ravka and putting it in for a third. We was like, what the heck is happening? What's been the main difference between this season and last season, Craig? Because last season I looked, you conceded a shed load of goals, but you scored a lot because you had Dominic Solanke. This season, it still seems like you're still scoring a decent amount of goals, but you've let in a far lot less in this season. What has been? Where would you kind of pinpoint that to?
If I compare the two seasons, to be honest, there has been a continuation of the end of last year. Now, that might sound like a really funny thing for me to say. I think things have improved, but just to remind you, back at the start of last season, we had a very, very, very rough, bumpy start to Andoni Iraola's reign. Even to the point where I turned round, and this is not one of my proudest moments, Adam. I've got to say that. It's a good job I'm not Bill Foley. I turned round and I said, I can see what Andoni Iraola is trying to do. What he did at Vallecano, which I knew about beforehand, and before he joined, was very, very, it was exceptional. He beat the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico. He beat all the big boys in Spain, but we haven't got the players and the personnel for it. So we got off to a very, very rough start, and I even said to a Leeds fan that I turned around and said, I think we might need to bring in Jesse Marsh. Bring in Jesse Marsh, who can actually get some points. I can see you laughing there, Adam. But might to get some points on the board. How wrong was I? Because Iraola, after that beating Burnley, it just turned the corner. It just turned the corner. We did have a bit of a hammering up at the Etihad against Manchester City. We did well against them down here. We hadn't beaten Manchester City until this season. So we were looking good last year. Now, with the additions to the squad, so of course Solanke left, who did score a hatful of goals. Dean Howson come in. Evan Nielsen come in. I was worried about Evan Nielsen at first because I thought 40 million, if it doesn't work, it's a lot of money, especially for a club that's got an 11,000 seated ground. It's a bit ridiculous, but we have got better. Evan Nielsen probably, unlike Solanke. Solanke used to drop back a little bit more and used to bring other players in. Evan Nielsen kind of sits in a little bit of a deeper position, but has got the strength, the pace to actually push himself forwards. He always seems to get himself in the right position as well. So there has been differences between the two strikers, in my honest opinion. But I think both of them have got their qualities. Where we have, and you made a very good point there, where we have got a lot better is, I think, at the back, Senesi come on leaps and bounds. I couldn't have seen Dean Howson getting into the squad. There was rumours that he was really unhappy at Bournemouth and was looking to get a move away. I'm sure he's not saying that now, because he's got his chance. He's cemented that, and I can't see Senesi, who was exceptional beforehand, getting back into the squad. So I would say that we have improved. both man to man, but also the signings have improved us as well. And I think Iriola has also been working on certain players to actually make sure that if there is injuries, that we can cover other positions, which I'm sure that we'll come on to, because we've got a hatful of injuries, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we will definitely talk about it because it's about a list as long as my arm. So,
Yeah.
has Iriola adjusted his tactics or tweaked anything as well? Because I think when I watched Bournemouth, it was high press. It is get the ball on the floor and largely play possession as well when
Yeah.
given the opportunity. Or has he? Yeah, so basically, has he changed any of his style? Because the results speak for themselves, and obviously the numbers have changed drastically. Because I remember, like, you'd see Bournemouth like 4-3 and crazy games, which like Brentford are having this season, and they can't keep the ball at the back of the net. Whereas I think Bournemouth are keeping far more clean sheets this season, especially with the two centre halves you've got, who I think are two of the biggest hot properties, I'd say, in Europe at the moment, along with several other players who have emerged this season.
I think the fitness levels have definitely improved. Have definitely improved within the squad. He hasn't really changed anything. The one thing I would say that we do, now more than, especially when Eddie Howe was in charge of this football club in our first spell in the Premier League, we used to have to adapt because the other sides, we knew that our players weren't, they were great to get us there, but they weren't of the quality where we could actually go out and dictate a game. We couldn't go out and dictate what style of play. We can now with the squad we've got. That's what Iriola's tried to do. Is we dictated the game against Manchester City. Which you'd never expect. So I think the fitness levels is the big thing that has improved. We are moving as a unit a lot more, a lot better. I think Dean Howson, I think it's going to be really difficult for Senesi to get back into the squad. I think what we're probably going to have to do is we're going to have to maybe adapt things because at the moment we haven't got a fit right back. Lewis Cook, as I say, I think Iriola's retrained some certain players, so this is like a secondary position for you. Lewis Cook has gone into that right back position and has been exceptional in that right back position. So I think when Senesi comes back, he'll probably have to go into that. But it's the way we're playing as a unit. I think the squad are getting better at it. We're improving, and we're able to impose, our style of play on other teams. Sometimes it doesn't always work. To give it a good example, against Everton, of all teams, when we played them quite recently at Dean Court, yes, we did get the victory against them, but it was frustrating. It was very, very hard work. Everton, in all honesty, under Sean Dyche, are a boring side. I'm sure you'll agree. But the thing is it was very, very tough to break them down. But we kept at it. We kept at it, and we managed to do it in the end. And that's what I mean. Years ago, we would have to kind of adapt ourselves to actually suit the game that we're playing. So it's a great place to be, really.
Just jumping on that Everton point, does that then give you a little bit of a fear in the back of your mind that you're going to play a Forest side who are largely going to sit on the counter attack then? And because we've got a bit more, you say Everton are boring, but like you watch us go for it's like the Red Arrow sometimes. It can be anyway.
Yeah.
And we've been devastated on the break this season. I think we're one of the best sides in Europe for counter attacking goals. So does that little bit of doubt then creep into your mind with how you're saying that you struggled to break Everton down and it was a horrible game to play?
Yeah, to be honest, that's why I kind of mentioned it as well, Adam, because Forest are a lot better side than Everton. A lot better side, both in personnel, both in fitness levels, and the quality that you have got. And I think, of course, at the time, Sean Dyche was in charge of Everton. You've got a far better manager. So, yeah, that does really concern me. That a side like that, but we do have a very, very solid defence. Kirkes has been absolutely exceptional on the left-hand side. Lewis Cook, has been, he looks like a right back, but he's traditionally a midfielder. He looks like a right back. He's solid in that position. Before Areola come in, you'd never think that. And the centre back pairing. So if we get it right, and of course, like I say, I know it sounds stupid, but I mentioned the fitness levels. The fitness levels are good, even though we have got a big injury list. Um, you know, with players like Dean Howson and Zabanier, who again, we say about Howson, but Zabanier is unbelievable. One of the I'm not surprised. There was rumours last season of Real Madrid and Manchester City being after him. I'm not surprised by that at all. Um, I personally think that we can cope with that. I think we can cope with the defensive aspect. It is trying to break those teams down, especially considering we haven't got a recognised forward, even though Dongo's done a pretty good job in that position.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be just like horrible battles and like lots of good young
Yeah.
talent on show on Saturday.
Yes.
Dunhausen there, Morello for us. Obviously, that battle Lewis Cook potentially against either Callum Hudson-Odoi if he's fit or someone else. I don't know what we're going to do there. Bournemouth have the 9th best home record this season, and Forest have the second best away record this season, Craig. So it's a real clash of like two good sides, but Bournemouth have beaten the likes of Spurs, City and Arsenal at home this season, but then also drawn to Palace and West Ham of all sides and lost to Brighton, unfortunately. What's been has it because of a style against those certain teams that are in the bottom half they come to you because they sit back that's been a problem for you, or has it just been circumstances within the games as well that have cost you points in those games where you think we should be beating those sort of sides?
I think there's certain games, throughout this season, where we should have got a better result. So, for example, Chelsea at home, we were all over them that day, all over them. We had loads of chances. Evan Nielsen was a little bit shot shy, just coming to the squad. And we were spurning all sorts of chances. Missed a penalty as well, wasn't really good for his confidence. So yeah, we have had games like that, and then of course Nkuku then goes and scores against us, which was individually a very, very good goal, but it was a bit of a gut wrencher because we played so well and really outperformed Chelsea. So we have had those incidents. Of course, the Newcastle game where Dongo headers it in and it was judged as handball. That was unfair. I think, go into the Arsenal and the City games, and of course Spurs as well. Spurs not so much, but the other two, they do like to play this free-flowing football. And actually, Arsenal in particular do play that high press as well. And it kind of suited us. We were exceptional against both of those teams. Like I say, I don't think we were as good as we were against Newcastle last weekend. But, against both Arsenal and City, we were very, very good. We were very controlled. We controlled the match. City, it was the start of their really bad run of form. Arsenal were down to 10 men after half an hour, but I think we were the better side before that as well. Arsenal fans will turn around and say that's the reason we beat them, but it really isn't. So I think sometimes a team that wants to come and play football is easier for us to play against, if that sounds right. Brighton being the exception that you mentioned there. I think Brighton were the team that did kind of, I think Fabian Hertzler come and did his homework on Bournemouth. He really, really counteracted every single thing we were trying to do. He kind of counteracted that, and hopefully Nuno hasn't learned from that and seen that game, because if he has, I think there is probably one of the biggest failings, I would say, of Iriola, and there's not many, but one of them is when we get in that situation. That Brighton game, we could see that we were finding it a little bit difficult. Now, his substitutions when things are going well are very, very good. You know, he's exceptional. You can even pick out it, sometimes, you know, when Eddie Howe and especially Gary O'Neill were making substitutions, you go, that's a really weird one to make. You could actually turn around and see somebody, you know, warming up on the sideline and go, yeah, that's going to be the change for them. And it does happen like that. But on the spin side of that, I think, you know, when a team has done their homework, because we have got that primary style of play that we like to impose on teams, can we really adapt? Can we really play long ball? I don't think we really can, which is a little bit of a frustration.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to get into your team from the weekend, actually, Craig.
Yeah.
It kind of brings on the next point. So just for our audio listeners, I'll read it out. So the team against Newcastle that Bournemouth put out was Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal. I don't know if I've even said that right, to be fair. Lewis Cook at right back. Zabania at centre-half with Dean Hughson. Kirkesh at left-back. Ryan Christie, Tyler Adams in the midfield. David Brooks, Justin Cliver, Antoine Semenyo, just behind Dango Ouattara, which I learned only to say last season, actually, because he's got a strange last name, hasn't he?
Yes.
Really, really strong 11 there, Craig. But as we mentioned on your show, the amount of injuries, and I'm just looking at the injury list. This is on Flash Score. So the injury list was Arujo out with a hamstring, Evan Nilsson with his foot, James Hill, who's got a thigh injury, Alex Scott, knee injury, Marco Senesi with a thigh injury, Lewis Sinisterra with a thigh injury, Adam Smith with a leg injury, Sola, who's a new player who's on international duty, Marcus Tavernier with a thigh injury, and Enesu now with a fresh ACL injury. Have you been really unlucky, or has this been due to the style of Iriola, or what?
I think it's probably bad luck. You know, these players do seem to have picked up in terms of fitness levels. You know, I've got to say that. You know, I think there has been, you know, some real bad luck throughout this season so far. But you know, even though this is bare bones, it shows how good a squad we've got and how lucky we are that we can still put out a squad like that. Now, any more injuries beyond this, you know, say for example, touchwood, it's not going to happen, but if Dongo was to get injured, we'll probably have to play, you know, Silcott Dewberry, for example, who is a new player from Chelsea, you know, a youngster, you know, he might be good, you know, but of course, not much experience in the Premier League. You know, we might have to play Jefferson, you know, again, a player that's had limited time, although the youngest scorer in the Premier League for Sheffield United. So, you know, there is some decent players on the bench, but I think this is probably, you know, we lose a player out of this squad as it is at the moment, and we'll be in real trouble. You know, we have had bad luck. You know, the ACL to NSU now, it was done on training. Are they pushing themselves too far hard? You know, they did this last season, and you know, we didn't really have a crisis of this level. So I put it down to bad luck. It's something that's just completely unavoidable. And it's just one of those things that happens in football. We've got to be prepared though, you know, and for next season, you know, if we do get a European place, then we need to make sure that we do have that contingency plan, because by playing more games, if you take out another 2 players from this squad, say for example you take out Tyler Adams or Ryan Christie, we're in big trouble then. We're in big trouble, both in the Premier League and in Europe. So yeah, it's something to be mindful of.
I mean, I think you mentioned to me before, either on your show or off air, that Mark Travers could possibly start over Kepa. I mean, if he does, then you've got a full 11 of all different nationalities there, which I quite enjoy and don't enjoy at the same time playing in England. Where would you say is I think the obvious weak spot you would have to say is Lewis Cook playing at right back, because he's not a natural right back. But I know you've mentioned how good he's been. Is there anywhere else in this team that you'd say is a chink in your armour that Forest could exploit on Saturday?
I think, Lewis Cook, I think personally, he's done a very good job at right back, but he isn't traditionally right back, and that always does concern me. I would say, of course, going forwards, again, Donga Watara, he's not traditionally a forward. Now, Semenyo can play there. I think why they've gone with Dongo, why Iraola's gone with Dongo, is because you take Semenyo out of that position and put him up front, then that takes Semenyo, who is probably better on that left wing, which, again, is a weird one, because traditionally Semenyo would be on the right wing, but of course Brooks is on the right. So, of course, Semenyo switched over onto that left wing. What he's going to be doing is cutting in. But Dongo isn't traditionally a forward. He is a winger. He is a winger. But again, he's not done badly in that position. The weak point, I would say, is if Chris Wood puts him under a bit of pressure, Kepa Arrizabalaga can sometimes make a right hash of things. There's been a number of times, and this is why I always say, it's a kind of 50-50 split between AFC Bournemouth fans. I'm probably on the side of I'd rather Mark Travers. I think maybe Chelsea have got this thing over us that is kind of dictating that Arrizabalaga needs to play, Kepa needs to play. However, personally, I'd rather Mark Travers, because he's a little bit more assured. I think he positions himself a little bit better within his goal. And of course, he doesn't start playing around with the ball at his feet and start messing around with it at the back. So, I think that is probably our weakest point, is our in goal. But it's been an exceptional season. I'm really scraping the barrel there, Adam, to actually give you a weakness. And likewise, I'm pretty sure you'll be scraping the barrel if you give a weakness of Forest, really.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's true. I think that's a fascinating battle on your left, our right, Kirkesh and Semenyo against potentially Elanga and Ola Aina. The one big battle I think is even more impressive. I saw someone posted a picture on from Sky, and it was possession 1 per 90, and top of that list were Bournemouth, but the trigger presser, or whatever you want to call it, the best trigger was Ryan Christie, 26.3 times 1 per 90, and only just below them, which were with 24.5, were both of our central midfielders, in Nico Dominguez and Elliot Anderson. And I wrote on Twitter, I quote tweeted it and said, it's going to be the battle of the you-know-what from Game of Thrones, with 4 absolute horrible players in there, but all players that can play, in Tyler Adams, Ryan Christie, Nico Dominguez and Elliot Anderson. Just how big is it of a battle for either of them players to win, really, to take control of this game on Saturday?
You know what? Tyler Adams, he's quite funny. He was, we signed him from Leeds, and he's been a sick note ever since, until very, very recently, when he's really shown that he's a real battler. He's a real tough cookie. So yeah, I think Tyler Adams, has been exceptional. He will enjoy this battle. He'll enjoy, putting himself about. Hopefully, don't injure him, please. Don't injure him, because he'll be on the sidelines for the next year and a half, which we've waited that long to actually get him back. But he's been very, very good. And I've got to say, Ryan Christie, the best way to explain Ryan Christie is he's not the most, you know, you couldn't turn round to me and say Ryan Christie, is a technical, you know, genius. You couldn't say, yeah, he's. If you look at Justin Clivert, very, very skillful player. Semenyo, again, very skillful. You couldn't say that about Ryan Christie, but what you can say about Ryan Christie is he doesn't bloody give up. He gives 150% all the time. His passing is very, very good. He does the basics very, very well, and he's very, very quick, which sometimes you need players like that in the squad. He's a bit of, and actually said this to, I was on the Scottish podcast a little while back. He's kind of like the glue. And playing in the role he does actually suits him more for Bournemouth rather than what he does for Scotland, which is on the wings. He's really in there. He likes getting stuck in. He's got a very, very good head on him. He'll pick out where players are, expect the ball to be sprayed around a lot. And of course, he likes getting stuck into tackles.
I mean, that just sounds very similar to both of our central midfielders, especially with Elliot Anderson. I mean, Ryan Christie might trying to give a bit of a kick because he's deferred back to England now rather than Scotland, and you know what Scots and English are like. So, no, I think that prepares itself for a really intriguing battle, especially with the styles of play. Because, like I said, we'll sit more likely on the counter. So I expect Tyler Adams and Ryan Christie to have so much more of the ball than us. But just what's your thoughts been on Forest this season, Craig? Because we're both getting altitude kind of poisoning up there and whatnot, nosebleed territory. But it could be a very exciting last 16 games of the season for both sets of supporters.
Long may it continue for both of us, because it's just a great story. It's a great story. The two sides that, of course, Fulham come up with us as well. They won the league that season, but, the two teams that finished just below them, both getting into European competitions, which I think is, it's not just a pipe dream anymore. It's got to be now an ambition. You're safe. I would say, pretty much there. 38 points is what you would say is safety. We're going to get to the point. Of course, we still got Southampton to play. But I think long may it continue. And I think, honestly, it's just good for football. I think Forest have been exceptional. This season. Nuno has changed things. I think, it's improved leaps and bounds from last season when you just survived. And it's just great to see. It's great to see that this is going to be a top of the table clash. I know that the media are hoping and praying that both of us fail, but we need to stick it to them, and we both need to stay in there, because it would make a great story if both Nottingham Forest and AFC Bournemouth are playing in Europe next season. Let's make it happen.
I mean, that will be a turn up for the books, won't it? It really will. And
yeah,
I think it would annoy so many like Arsenal fans and Chelsea fans and whoever else who however many billions they spend, and then you've just got Forest and Bournemouth who've spent we spent like extravagantly and made no boots about it, sort of thing. But yeah, it's great. Players that you fear from Forest at the moment. I know you spoke about Chris Wood briefly, but is there anyone else that you kind of go, we need to make sure they're quiet at all?
I think Morgan Gibbs-White, is probably the player that will jump out at most people. Hudson-Odoi, has been really, really good this season as well. Like we said before, Chris Wood, he is on fire. He's rolled back the years, whereas Leicester fans are moaning and saying that Vardy is past his sell-by date. Chris Wood, it looks like he's going backwards in years, don't he? I want to know his secret actually,
He's like
because
Benjamin Button.
yeah, I'd like to go backwards in age, but to be honest, I'm looking older and older by the bloody day each time I look in the mirror. So yeah, Chris, if you've got a secret, let us all know.
Really tough question for you to answer, Craig. Where will Bournemouth finish this season? You're allowed to give me a little bit of a range, I'd say, because I think that's fair.
Do you know what? I was on TalkSPORT the other day and I was speaking to Rory Jennings and I said, look, we should have beat. I'm going to upset you now. And he knew what I was going to come out with. And he was like, well, yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. You should have beaten us. We should be on more points than we are. And I know that sounds crazy. Should have beat Chelsea at home. Should have beat Chelsea away. Should have beaten Leicester City away from home. That day they beat us 1-0. How they did that, I don't know. But, they did. But should have beat Newcastle at home. That's already 10 points. It sounds ridiculous that we should have 10 points more than what we've got. However, I think that Iraola he seems to find a solution. All the time we've been saying the wheels are going to fall off because of this injury crisis. It's going to catch up with us. It's not. Iraola seems to have a solution for everything, like Lewis Cook being moved back into that right back position. So with that in mind, I would say that this football club, I did say, about the Champions League the other day. I can't see it. Fifth. I think fifth. And I'll tell you what, that would be, that would just be incredible. Europa League, I believe.
I mean, Champions League is fifth now. I think it's like a 97% chance it will happen that we'll get another Champions League spot for England. So,
hey, we're both in next year.
If Bournemouth and Forest are rolling up in the Champions League next season, you get like Real Madrid going to the Vitality, which is ironic in itself because I think you all laugh at it yourself because you've got a 12,000 seater stadium and you've got Mbappe definitely just turning up, going, "What the heck what have I turned up to?" And then if we're playing, I don't know, Bayern Munich, and they're like, "Well, the stadium still looks the same, and we was here 30 years ago." Do you know what I mean? They'll probably be saying that.
Yeah, so they'll get off the plane at Southampton. They'll be like, "Oh, we don't have to go far to their ground, do we?" They'll get on the bus, and then they'll be like, "Oh, driving away from it. Hang on a minute," and then they'll turn up at Dean Court and go, "Oh, where the hell have we turned up to?"
They might be playing on the Sunday League pitches across the road from the ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great, to be honest, mate, it's a great story. We've been, how we've been managed over the past couple of years, and just a bit of a side note, how we've been managed is exceptional. You look at clubs like Brighton and Brentford, and those two have got more mentions than we have. I think people are starting to take notice now. There is the likes in the media that do want to see us fall off a cliff because we're too small to be in the Premier League, supposedly. But long may it continue. And hey, there will be a new ground coming. We've got a new state-of-the-art training ground. We're going to get a Category 1 academy. That's also on the agenda. I know that. Not much has been made about it, but of course that will hopefully mean, rather than buggering off to Southampton, the youngsters in the nearby area that are quality will go, I don't need to go far to play my football. Play for AFC Bournemouth. in one of the top academies in the country, rather than Southampton or Reading or Arsenal, Chelsea picking up our players that really should be ours.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All to you. I mean, fair play to Bill Foley for kind of sorting that, and Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. We got Adonis Creed.
Yeah. Prediction for Saturday, Craig, if you will.
Right. Okay. You know what I'm going to do. You know what I'm going to do, because I'm going to do the same as what I did against Newcastle, because it's been working. Because it's been working. I've done this past couple of weeks with our injury crisis. So it's going to be a really, really, really difficult game. We are really stretched. The wheels are going to kind of fall or come off, but we'll scrape ourselves to a point. But I'm only saying that because we absolutely battered Newcastle on last Saturday. So, if I keep saying it until it stops working, I'm going to keep going with that same mantra that, the wheels are going to fall off. And hopefully the wheels will just keep on turning and they just keep on getting better and better and better.
Well, I don't want to put the fear into you too much, Craig. I do. I actually do. I'm lying. Most teams we've played this season, we've not beaten them since we've come back up. Nuno's gone and beaten them. Liverpool would not beat for 55 years. Man United away, we hadn't beaten for 30 years. Never beat Brentford in the Premier League, not beat Wolves in the Premier League, not beat Everton in the Premier League. And there's only you, Fulham and Man City now for us to come and get. So I'd love it. I'd do with Kevin Keegan. I'd love it if we beat you on Saturday, but I would take a point. I actually would, because tough place to go, bogey side, on the nemesis list, firmly probably in the top 5, I would say. So, yeah, I'd take a point at Bournemouth. I'd take a 1-1 or a 0-0, to be honest, because it'd be nice to keep clean sheet. I mean, I've got Ola Aina in my dream team, so a clean sheet would be lovely. So I'm going to stick with a point. But Craig, thank you very much for joining us. Where can people find your channel or podcast?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on, Adam. So you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or whatever it's called nowadays. Just search for UTCIAD. We've got a range of interviews on there with special guests. We had Adrian Charles on recently. We've also had some really, really, really unique, controversial special guests. You'll have to go onto the podcast to find out who those are, because I had to personally get them viewed by YouTube to make sure that they could be monetized. I'm not going to mention them on here and get this, put you through the same thing. But yeah, you can find us on UTCIAD. There's loads of stuff on there. So yeah, please come over, give us a sub, tell us what you think. And yeah, of course, we've got the preview on our site as well with Adam. So yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, mate.
No worries. Thank you very much. And if anyone's watched this, like it, subscribe. It's all free. Give us a review on Spotify or Apple, and obviously go check out Craig's stuff. But until next time when we do our review, it's a come on you Reds from me.